Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the fourth and final meeting of Scrutiny Panel 2. So we've got a number of guests this evening, sort of people presenting and some witnesses. So I think just before we go any further, just be good just to get an introduction from everyone here, and then I'll introduce some of the people who are online. So I don't, Natasha, did you want to just start, introduce yourself?
Yeah.
Great.
Hi, my name is Natasha Patel. I am the bid manager for Your Acton Bid.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Conor McDonough. I'm the Assistant Director for Regeneration, Economy and Skills at Ealing Council.
Good evening, councillors. Evening, everyone. Paul Murphy. I'm the Head of Community Safety at Ealing.
Great, thank you. And then online, we should have Eduardo Savadera from University of West London.
Hi.
Great. We've got Stephen Fry from University of West London as well, and Angela Kanwar.
Hi, good evening.
Great. And then we've got a number of other council officers who are online, hopefully in case we need to answer any specific questions. So they'll jump in. But I think there's quite a few of them, so I'm not going to introduce everybody, otherwise will take some time. And I know Councillor Sumbers and Councillor Brett are online as well this evening.
As Councillor Mida.
Councillor
Mida is also online. Councillor Mida.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Mida, I didn't spot you there. Thank you. So, Jack, do we have any apologies this evening?
Yes, we do. We have apologies from Jerry Bowick.
Great, thank you. So we don't have any urgent matters to consider or any matters to consider in private. So are there any declarations of interest above and beyond what we've already declared in our councillor declarations? No. So we'll go to the minutes from the last meeting, which was some time ago on Tuesday, the 5th of December. So I hope everyone's had an opportunity to have a look at them, and in particular, the three recommendations at the end. Was there anything in the minutes that anyone wanted to bring up in terms of accuracy or corrections, or anything anyone thought didn't reflect what was discussed? No. Perfect. So we'll approve those as an accurate sort of reflection of the meeting. So we'll go directly into the main agenda item. So each of the meetings we've taken a different sort of strand to this director, and today we're looking at the economy in Ealing. So we've got a number of presentations, but we're going to start with Natasha and Paul, who are going to cover a bit about the Acton bid and some of the concerns that local businesses have in regards to shoplifting locally and the impact that's having. So Natasha, we'll pass over to you. Thank you.
Hello all. So I'm just going to start off with a brief presentation of what Acton Bid does and what a business improvement district is. So a business improvement district is a geographical area where local businesses have voted to invest together to improve the environment. Businesses within a defined bid boundary area pay a levy charge calculated to the rateable value of their bid business. This is collected directly back and invested back into the area to provide support services for the members and a platform for businesses to work together to invest in service, special projects and events. Your Acton bid was recently voted back in for another 5 years, and now it's in its second term working to deliver on its new mandate. Your Acton bid works for 600 businesses within the bid boundary. Our bid covers businesses in the South Acton Industrial Estate, Acton Park Industrial Estate, and the Vale Industrial Estate, as well as Acton Main High Street. Since being established in 2008, here are a few projects that have been delivered in our town centre to help promote our businesses in the area, consumers and residents. So we work under 4 project themes, and under the safe and secure, we have added additional CCTV cameras on the Mount, Churchill Road, South Acton Industrial Estate, which is all monitored by Ealing Council's CCTV. Hired private security company called My Local Bobby for additional support to our businesses and help reduce the ABO and the retail crime. We provide monthly security meetings and pub watch meetings that have been attended by the Met Police as well as the safest community teams as well as our bid members. We have provided free security radios to our bid businesses that are connected to the Met Police as well as the CCTV control room to help prevent crime as well as increase communication with neighbouring businesses. Our second theme is a clean and attractive Acton. So we've added brand new Christmas lights for the whole of the Acton Town Centre as well as Churchill Road. Branded new town centre bins for the whole of Acton Town Centre and South Acton Industrial Estate. We added flower baskets, bike planters, and we've maintained and inherited council furniture that was placed during COVID, so the planters and the parklets. We re-landscaped Acton Main Roundabout and used Acton local businesses to do the infrastructure of that work. We've created additional green spaces in South Acton Industrial Estate to introduce an area for workers to take breaks and a place just to have a little tea break in that concrete area. We've invested additionally in deep cleans around Acton Town Centre and the industrial estates. We've removed shutter stickers on all businesses within our bid boundary area. Our next theme is a better connected and active Acton. We've created wayfinding maps in Acton Town Centre and utilised the existing information boards that were around Acton Town Centre. We've provided additional funding to secure the second screen of Act 1 Cinema to help grow the nighttime economy. We have created social media content to help promote our bid businesses in the area. We've created a yearly bunny trail for Easter to help increase footfall within businesses. And we host a yearly Christmas light switch on event. Projects that were delivered to our bid businesses to help them rebuild after COVID and help lower their day-to-day running cost is under value and support. So we offer our bid businesses free pest control. So small SME businesses are entitled to free pest control, and bigger industrial businesses are entitled to a 20% discount. We offer a discount on waste management services through BIFA. We offer free training courses in essentials like emergency first aid, level 2 food hygiene, fire marshal, conflict management, and mental health. We host a monthly business breakfast meeting with West London Chambers of Commerce, and that helps to increase communication with businesses that are out of the area that come into Acton. We offer free broker service with Place Support Partnership to look at the day-to-day cost of running a business, so their gas, electricity, telecoms, water, etc. And we provide support to our businesses with council-related matters, so fines, fly tipping, antisocial behaviour, and things like that. And we work with Ealing Council's Regen team to work on the South Acton Master Plan. I sit on the High Street Task Force group meeting as well, since they were introduced, and we deliver a lot of projects through them as well. So that is Acton Bid in a nutshell. We're a very small team. There's only myself at the moment, and we work with the two Bobbies. With our bid area, we are one of the biggest bids within Ealing Borough. So there's Ealing Broadway as well as West Ealing, but the number of hereditaments we have are bigger than the other two bids. So yeah, thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Natasha. Just because I think we're having some problems with the slides. There was a separate sheet on the table that has the slides that would have been shown about the active bids. So anyone hasn't noticed those, they are on the table in front of us. So before we do questions, we go over to Paul, sort of linking. I know you spoke about sort of a bit touching on crime a bit in what you were talking about. I know, and there's a section in the main slide pack about shoplifting. So I know, Paul, did you want to talk about those? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, thank you. I will try not to talk at you for too long about this. I'll try to keep it fairly high level in terms of what the data tells us, and I've tried to present it as transparently as we possibly can, but very happy to take questions on it. And a lot of it feeds back into the work that obviously Natasha, you're doing in Acton, but also that we're doing with other bids as well as part of the High Street Task Force, the approach that we're taking there. So in Ealing, as in elsewhere, theft from shops, it is primarily a police-led matter. We have quite a mature partnership with the police in Ealing. So as a community safety service, we are focused much more on the sort of the high harm offences. As a community safety service, we are focused on antisocial behaviour, protecting vulnerable people, and tackling exploitation. Shoplifting or theft from shops, I think, is something that is historically been maybe seen as a low harm crime. Some people might call it a victimless crime. I don't think there's such a thing as a victimless crime, but that's how it has been referred to. We've know anecdotally there has been an increase in theft from shops, and I think what the data hopefully shows is that those sort of anecdotes, if you like, are borne out by what the data tells us. What are the drivers of that? Possibly higher publicity. So there is extent of some more reporting going on. Cost of living crisis has been noted as a potential driver of it, and also the self-fulfilling nature of when you talk about it being maybe a free-for-all in terms of stealing from shops, more people are likely to steal from shops. But there's also a big difference between just theft from shops and what passes over into robbery and the more organized elements, which is not so much of an issue that we've picked up on in Ealing, and it's not so much an issue that comes out to us from the data, but it's definitely something that we need to keep a watch on. Since last summer, community safety have been attending the High Street Task Force as a matter of course, and we've shared the same data and some of the insights into that forum. So there's relatively little active work that is being done by the council in regard specifically to shoplifting, but in terms of making the high streets and the town centres that much safer, there obviously is a great deal of work. And I wanted this evening just to provide a little bit of an insight into the data. So looking at this first slide, I suppose if you look at the three bid areas, Ealing and Ealing Broadway in particular is the highest area. Perhaps that's not unexpected. There's no firm trends, but we do see a pattern in late summer and Christmas as being peak times. So those are times where there's perhaps more footfall, also times that there is more security on, incidents are more likely to be detected and more likely to be reported. But the critical point is, I think, is we know theft from shops is underreported hugely. And why is that? Number one, maybe it's not seen as a priority. Number two, maybe there's no clear accountability around whose job it is to report it. I think sometimes a member of the public seeing something stolen from a shop wouldn't necessarily report it because it's not my problem. There's also the perceived idea that the police won't do anything, which is something that we see in other types of lower level offences, antisocial behaviour being a key one. And in many cases with theft from shops, nobody knows it's happened. Nobody actually knows the incident has taken place. And even when they do, it often takes place, it's happened after the event and they don't necessarily report it. If I can come on to the next slide, please. This, I appreciate, is a bit of a big table, but the key thing and key takeaway from this, I think, is that Ealing places roughly in the middle of this league table here by volume. We're 13th in London in terms of number one being Westminster, perhaps not a surprise. When you extrapolate this by rate, so by proportion of population, Ealing is actually relatively low scoring. We're down at number 23 in this, so relatively low in terms of the rates of theft from shops. But if we go on to the next slide, we can sort of drill down a little bit more into that further. Like other West London boroughs, our rate remains low, volume remains mid-tier, but there has been a trend, and you'll see it right across London, for reduced sanction detections. And again, what do we mean by sanction detections? That's basically there being a sanction for an offence taking place. So an arrest and a charge, or a penalty notice, or a conviction, or a prosecution, or something of that ilk. We've seen sanction detections drop off significantly. Now, we think there's probably an issue here around reporting, because the better reporting there is, the lower sanction detection rates will go. I know that sounds perverse, but we know that the more that is reported, particularly those that may have gone undetected previously, things that aren't picked up by CCTV, the more the total volume is, the lower the overall proportion is likely to be of sanctions. But there is a question around why that sanction detection rate has dropped off, and that's right across the board in London. So it's something we should be curious about. Just coming on to the last two slides, and I will be brief, but I think it's probably the final slide, the next one, if that's okay, Ealing ward offences by rate, that's the most relevant one. Because broadly, those two slides do show the same thing, but this one breaks it down by rate. And this is just a deep dive into sort of the hyper-local picture in Ealing when it comes to theft from shops. And perhaps this is surprising. There's a high rate of theft from shops in a part of the borough lighting up there that we might not have suspected would be the case. We'll notice it's not a bid area. We've done a bit of soul searching on this with police to understand why that is. Police have identified two particular premises there. One probably wouldn't be a surprise to anyone. It's the Tesco at Perivale. There is another premises there that's a different type of venue that have reported a very high level of thefts from that particular shop, and there's a piece of work being done around that particular shop. But it does show that there is, if you look at the picture across Ealing, it's very easy to tell where the police resourcing would be targeted and would be best targeted to do its work. And we also see, I think, the positive impact of the bids there as well, and the work that is being done, I think, is highlighted by Natasha. Acton perhaps being lower than it might have been expected to be. So there's a lot of good practice out there. In terms of the key things that we always think of when we think of theft from shops. Good practice is appropriate security. It's about the shop also taking its responsibilities as an employer to health and safety seriously as well. Regular security audits being undertaken. High quality CCTV, a sharing of information, which I know does happen in Acton and across the bids around banned customers, and how to identify them and to deal with them robustly and to deal with them appropriately. A report and prosecute policy is something else that is good practice. And I think there's a key thing for us all around storing high value items in appropriate places. An incident happened to me 2 weeks ago, and I did report it, by the way. I actually 999'd it, and there was a pretty decent police response, but that was the theft of 2 bottles of champagne from the very front of a shop where bottles of £45 champagne are being stored before you even get into the shop. And why is that being stored there? So there is something around the practice of the premises, and what's so good about the approach, I think some of the bids have taken, is making sure that that good practice is being shared, because it's not being shared across the board. And it is important to understand whose job it is, I suppose, in terms of getting that good practice out there. There's been a strong argument for saying the companies themselves should be developing their own good practice. But there's also, I think, something for us around how there is an enormous resource there with the police designing out crime team and the local safer neighbourhood teams who are happy. Some of them take it upon themselves and sort of go a little bit rogue and do some really good work. But there's also the police designing out crime team that are always happy to provide exactly the same advice that they provide to people in residential settings. They're happy to provide in those business settings as well. So those are sort of the key points I wanted to make, really. I hope that the data's been helpful, but obviously really happy to take any questions.
Brilliant. So we'll take a pause there and do some questions on this section of the presentation. So I don't know if any councillors had any questions they wanted to ask. Councillor Johnson.
And he did reply to me about the lighting issue in Acton at the Mount, just outside Sainsbury's. That light's still out. And down in Bollebridge Road, there's a newish, it's not that new now, I suppose it's about 5 years old. There's a Sainsbury's there, which has attacks as well as thefts. And they've talked about the lighting. I have had a reply about that, about how they need to get some special part. I'm not saying that extra lights would put anybody off. We all know that, but it just would be helpful. And I think the public would feel that bit safer. So it's lighting. CCTVs, not that helpful in some ways. I'm not against it. It's just that they're going to go and do something they shouldn't be doing. They wear hoods and wrap themselves up so you wouldn't be able to recognise them. But let's have more lighting, and I think the public would be that bit, happier. I know Natasha was with me when people brought some of those things up at the last police meeting, and everyone does work together. But we all just have to keep on top of it. Thank you.
Regarding the lighting on the Mount, there is lighting there. It just needs to become a bit more brighter. The infrastructure that's been put on the Mount needs a bigger discussion, I think, with Ealing Council on what improvements can be done. Maybe extra lighting that can be put on the church, like sensor lighting and things like that, where we'll be able to help implement that via the cost. But it needs a bigger discussion, I think, with the councillors regarding that Mount area. Regarding South Acton, unfortunately, the Sainsbury's is not within our bid area, but there is a walkthrough through Bollebridge to Roslyn Road, so where that flowering area. We are looking to add additional lighting in that area. I know there was a slight change and some improvements were done, but further you go through that alleyway, there needs to be sensor lighting put in, and that's something that the bid has budgeted for.
Thank you.
I'm very happy to come back briefly on that as well. Thank you, Councillor, for your question. And I'm glad I did respond to your email. I was nervous when you first said I didn't. Oh no, I haven't responded. In terms of the two things, the lighting, yes, the lighting will always be a slightly tricky issue, both in terms of the technology, but also in terms of what our policy is around, in terms of our environmental footprint and all the rest of it. However, what we do know is lighting, where it's done right, plays a huge part in people's perception of safety, regardless of what it actually means in reality. It's the perception, and that's so important because people feel safer. They're going to act in a way that others feel safer. More people will go there, so on. So that's something we're very happy to look at. Something we did as part of the Safe Reading for Women project as well was look at upping the lumens on the lighting and gradation of lighting as well when you go into areas off high streets. So it's something I can take away and I can speak with Natasha about as well because there's some good ideas there. In terms of CCTV, there are actually some tactics you can use to deal with, I won't go into them, but deal with when people have their faces covered. There's some really basic things that CCTV operators are very good at doing in terms of identifying somebody from things other than their facial appearances. So CCTV continues to be a really important tool, but you are absolutely right that the amount of people who will just habitually cover their face, particularly in cold weather, is very high.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Hi, so I have a small business in Camden and my business has been victim to shoplifting a lot, and as you said, a lot more recently. When we've reached out to the police or to the local Safer Neighbourhoods team, we've been told that if the amount being shoplifted falls below £50, then it's not worth their time or resources to do anything about it. I don't know if it's my business is in Camden, it might not be the same in Ealing. So that's my question essentially. That is it the same in Ealing? Is that your understanding? And perhaps that's why shoplifting isn't being reported.
So I haven't heard that figure ever quoted to me by West Area Command. I'm not saying that it's not, but I would be intrigued to know whether that's Met Police policy or not. I'm not clear whether it is. And if there's I can take it away as a question and feed it back maybe in a written answer as to whether there's a Met Police policy. I'd be really surprised personally if the Met Police had a policy like that, because it would suggest that if you wanted to make a living from shoplifting, you would just steal items worth £49 or below. So it seems to me to be a crazy idea to introduce something as arbitrary as that, and it should be done on case-by-case merits. Obviously, there will be times when somebody will make a decision that if no high-value items have been stolen, and there's no clear evidence of somebody identified in the offence, they may not investigate it and they may close the case. But I would be really surprised by they should not, in my view, be putting an arbitrary figure on it. I'll obviously roll back on that if it turns out it is Met policy, but let me go away and get that answer and provide a written answer if that's okay. And sorry to hear about your experience as well.
Any other questions?
Hi, not so much a question per se, but more perhaps feedback for you. So I represent Pittsang Ward, which of course on the lane we have many small businesses. And unfortunately, many have been subject to theft and shoplifting in the past few months. We had a big case recently as well. What we hear back from residents a lot of the time is that it's a trust issue. When they do report it, they don't feel that they have, good enough responses, and that, as you said before, sanctions aren't really imposed. I've also had similar conversations in Ealing Broadway. I actually went into a shop and I witnessed it happening. And I went up to the shop owner and said, are you aware that this is happening? And they said, happens 5-6 times a day. And it said it happens so much now that we've given up on contacting the police, the council, whatever, just because it's become the norm. So I think, obviously, it's not an easy answer or a solution, but there's definitely something I think there to explore in terms of rebuilding trust. And sort of, it's tricky to reach out because I think they feel very let down in a lot of ways. And I think, a lot of these people are owners of small businesses, and, a lot of the time, a lot of high value goods are stolen. But it just seems to, at least in my experience, a sense of disappointment and just, it is what it is. And there's no point in reporting. And we really do encourage, because it's so important, when we speak with our S&T teams, those figures need to be put in. And I understand that resources are allocated appropriately based on that data. But I think just feedback for you, if it's, worthwhile, I think that's the general consensus around Pitsanger. And as well, I've had conversations in Ealing Broadway. So
that's really helpful feedback and also quite worrying. Obviously, when you look at the stats that are behind me, Pitsanger looks, by all accounts, to be Not much going on in Leafy Pitshanger. It's all happy days there, but we know Pitshanger Village. I mean, you have the co-op there, which is hit, I think, is hit regularly and probably do have an underreporting problem. And you probably have other shops there that are affected in similar ways. So there's definitely something there around. This comes back to the police maybe winning back that little bit of trust and confidence, which they're really trying to do on a much broader level with communities at the moment, and also what the routes for the Safer Neighbourhoods teams to get better engaged with the local businesses is. If I don't know what the answer is in terms of, because it's always a vicious circle. If people believe there will be a negative outcome or that there will be no outcome, they're far less likely to report. Then of course what happens, the stats go down for that area. It gets even less attention than it would ordinarily get. And I know that I get sick of saying to people, please always report it, because I know it's quite a boring thing to be told, but I do try to practice what I preach, and I will always report it if I witness something and happening in a public space. So I think we do need to get that message out there more as a partnership. I think we need to be better at it, and I think that there is something there for police about how they engage with business communities, particularly the smaller business communities as well, so the ones that don't fall within the traditional high footfall areas like Pitshanger.
Thank you. I guess just sort of following on from that, because I know she wasn't able to make it this evening, but I spoke with Jerry from Make It Ealing just a couple of months ago, and she was saying what she thinks that actually shoplifting and crime in general in Broadway is one of the biggest risks for small businesses. And I think, has just been demonstrated or highlighted. I think that often small businesses just don't feel like the police is going to do anything about it. And, I think perpetrators feel that as well. Because I think what Joe was saying is a lot of shops report that if they challenge some of the shoplifting, they're like, well, what are you going to do about it? The police aren't going to do anything. And so I guess, sort of out from this evening, whether something, in terms of feeding back to the police, a bit about maybe what is being done locally and how their approach, because I think that's something that we've heard consistently across the borough in different areas, that there's not just businesses feel like that, but also there's a perception that the people who are carrying out these crimes, that actually there's no repercussion for it. And I know that's obviously a London-wide problem, not just an Ealing problem, but having a proactive approach locally, I think, if we can, I think that would be beneficial. I just had a couple of questions. One was on sort of these individual bids and the organisations that run them. How's it quantified? Because you outlined loads of great stuff that you're doing, and I know Joe was telling me about stuff that they're doing in Broadway. How is that quantified in terms of the success and in terms of how effective that is in terms of supporting business, and how, I guess, what more can be done, or what schemes you're doing are good and what was less helpful, etc., so that you can sort of hone in on trying to keep as many businesses afloat and grow locally as possible. And my second question was, I thought it was interesting about the police's Design It Out service, because I think one of the issues, as you were saying, is about how the shop floor is presented. How many businesses know about this service? Are they proactive in terms of going out to businesses in Ealing to making them aware that that this service is available to them?
So regarding your first question on the projects and services that we deliver, the most successful ones are regarding the crime relations. So introducing My Local Bobby into Acton has increased the amount of communication that we have with our businesses. As I said, we are one of the biggest bids. We've got 600 businesses. We're unable to communicate to all of them at one go. There are businesses that will benefit from the bid more than other businesses, but that's because they are proactive enough to say, okay, what is the bid doing? What can I get from them? I'm paying a fee to them. How do I get a portion of that back in services? With My Local Bobby, since they started a year ago now, more than a year ago. And since then, we have seen more communication with the shoplifters. They are aware of them. They've built relationships. We also have a lot of charities within Acton, like Acton Homeless Concern, where you've got individuals that are not in Acton but are coming from Shepherd's Bush, other areas, to collect services from Acton Homeless Concern and then have their dual time around Acton. And that's where the problems lie. But what the Bobbies, they have they've recognised the faces of regular shoplifters. They've spoken to smaller businesses on how to do things, on what to report on, and they do reporting on behalf of businesses sometimes as a kind of third-party reporting service. And whilst we do the shop watch, we're able to share that information to our businesses who do attend. And that shop watch is inviting all businesses, not just businesses that are on our radio scheme or on our WhatsApp groups. It's inviting all businesses to attend so they are able to get that message through. We do have the safer community teams or the neighbouring teams that do attend those meetings. But the problem with the police is that when it is called as 999, the response team they're not aware of these individuals, even though they have got, they're prone shoplifters, they're known within the area, but the response team are not aware of that. So they'll see it as, okay, it's just a minor kind of shoplift, and then either they let them go or they don't do the proper checks to see if that person's wanted, if that person has got a arrest beforehand regarding the same kind of thing, all of that stuff. So there is a issue with the Met Police in the way of the communication, and that's because probably all the reporting systems are all different. What I have heard is that they are going to be linking it into one platform, which might help the process when 999 is called, and then they are able to see that if that person is wanted or they've had known offences in the area and things like that, which will help the business even more. So there's loads of things that are there for businesses to do, but it's just more of the communication coming from the council side, the Met Police side, in advocating all these services that are available to them. At the moment, there isn't. It's just that, okay, it will go through the bid shouts about it, but then it doesn't come from the other resources around us.
Thanks, Joe. Just in answer to your questions about I think the designing out crime team. Just before I do, I think the system that Natasha is referring to is Connect as well, the new Police Connect system, which has gone live this month. That does basically pull together, I'm going to get it wrong, I think it's about might be 9 different police indices into a single accessible database. It does, and certainly should allow for ERPT, so the emergency response teams, to have just as much insight into information as the Police Safer Neighbourhood team to do. But in terms of the police designing out crime team, I think there is probably maybe an opportunity being missed there with the designing out crime team to do more. I think that their involvement on some quite basic design advice and security audit advice could increase reporting. I think it would overall lead to a decrease in offences, and it would lead to improved outcomes and improved communication, I think, between police and businesses as well. So it should be a win-win for everybody. There's always the risk that they are a limited resource. They are a very small team. I think they're a team of maybe 4 PCs locally plus a sergeant for the whole of West Area Command. So they are a small resource, but they are plugged into the local safer neighbourhood teams, which are obviously we're getting an uplift in safer neighbourhood teams now as well. So there is something there around a potential opportunity for the police to do more in terms of designing out issues and supporting businesses and designing it out in the same way that we do around residential burglary and things like that.
Thank you. Was there any further question on this section before we move on? No. So Natasha, thank you so much for coming, and to Paul for coming to talk about sort of your experience from Acton Bid and on the task force. Thank you. Right, so we'll go on to the rest of the presentation. So Connor, I think you're going to take us through that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So yeah, I've got a presentation I'll talk us through. I'll do it quite quick because you've all had the slides shared already, and then we can pause on any interesting slides you want to ask questions about. I've also got the members of my department joining virtually. We've got Christy, Mandor, Naz, and Sophie, and we've also got the strategic director, Peter George, virtually as well as Councillor Brett, the cabinet member. So yeah, start with a bit of strategic context. You all know where Ealing is, obviously, but sometimes it's just nice to remind ourselves, particularly on a nice image like this. This is an image taken from our local plan, which just sort of showcases Ealing's really strategic location within London at the confluence of Heathrow, OPDC, and a high-speed 2 terminus, which will come in the early 2030s. So Ealing, it's unrivaled connectivity. So when we're talking to developers, businesses, and investors who want to come to Ealing, this is a really compelling slide that we always share with them. And then zooming in on that a little bit more, you can see Ealing in this context with its neighbours. The the curvy shape there, that's known as West London's productivity arc. So Eileen's got the highest concentration of industrial land out of any London borough. So it's a major asset for us, which connects the significant regeneration at OPDC along the A40 down into Southall and then into Heathrow Airport. And just recently, in fact, last week, we had just had an exciting announcement from Imperial that they're going to create a West Tech Innovation Corridor, which will connect into our productivity arc to really enhance the role of that in creating new jobs and growing the economy for the future. Obviously, all very familiar with these. The one on the left is the big one that my department is leading on, so creating good jobs, which we'll discuss in more detail in the following slides. Bit more detail on that. The key metrics to be aware of here are creating 10,000 new jobs, 12,000 new qualifications and training programs, and a number of other metrics as well within that. I mentioned the team before, so very exciting to announce that this is a brand new department that the council has just created. So regeneration, economy and skills, which I'm leading, and a number of heads of services in there. So the key thing about this new department is it's bringing together key teams and services that really have a strong focus on growing Eileen's local economy and supporting residents into jobs. Previously, it was a bit disparate, but now it's all underneath one department, which I'm leading. Some early ideas on how the department's going to be set up. So on the left, you can see we're going to have a spatial approach to the borough. So we've got a regeneration, investment and jobs services, one covering the east, which is led by Sophie, and one covering the west, which is led by Mandor. And we're taking a new approach to working with our local businesses and large employers on a sector basis. So you can see here some of the key growth sectors that already exist in Ealing and ones we want to strengthen. And there's also some sectors we want to invite into the borough to make our economy more diverse and more resilient. And then there's a number of economy-led, borough-wide programmes. And I'm just reinforcing the word economy-led, jobs-led regeneration. That's the real emphasis that we're putting through now through this new department and responding to the requests of Councillor Mason and Councillor Brett as well, and how this has all been set up. Key interventions to date. So we continue to deliver a plan for good jobs, which was launched just before this administration. And that actual plan did inform many of the employment and economic KPIs that are in the current council plan. So it played a key role in doing that. We continue to deliver that. The department also played a key role in developing and drafting Eileen's new local plan, which has a lot of new policies around employment. We've just recently launched our Good for Ealing Inward Investment brand, which I'll talk about a bit more later. We manage quite a significant grant known as UK Share Prosperity Fund. And we are really getting more knowledge and intelligence around those growth sectors as well. Quite a few interventions here to mention. We developed 7 area vision frameworks for each of the towns, which focus on their local economies. We've got a creative enterprise zone status for North Acton. We're doing some work for our local industrial sites to ensure we can intensify the employment uses on those, learning zones, community hubs, lots of grants, and continuously refreshing our learning perspectives, which provides learning and skills for Ealing residents. Some key priorities for 24-25 that we're already working on and diverting resources towards. Very exciting to announce that we will be drafting a new Ealing jobs and skills strategy and action plan. So very much things around employment and skills, adult and community learning, and the role of regeneration and our high streets all coming together in a very integrated space. And we'll be co-developing that with our key partners, both within the organisation and externally. Good for Ealing programme I mentioned earlier, our brand new inward investment brand, delivering our UK Share Prosperity programme. A big emphasis on London living wage. There's a slide later which will pick up more on that, and working more with apprentices to ensure our business community can deliver more apprentices for Ealing residents. Greater priority on working with economically inactive people as well. So the people that aren't necessarily looking for jobs, the people have maybe fallen through the net and have lost their confidence and inspiration to look for a job. So we're putting more resources into that to outreach to those folk. Much more strong relationships and partnership approaches, particularly with our academic institutions. We're so privileged in Ealing to have University of West London, Imperial, Brunel as well are really keen to work with us, although they're in Hillingdon, but they really admire us as a borough and they want to work much closely with us. Again, jobs-led regeneration, that focus, and currently working with the OPDC as well on quite a strategic vision for delivering 56,000 new jobs in that part of the borough over the next 25 to 30 years. We're also going to be developing our strategic asks from OPDC, Heathrow and High Speed 2, and which will likely have to be a cabinet decision, so it's really mandated and very robust. I haven't mentioned here Ealing's evening and nighttime economy strategy as well, which we're currently developing, which really interfaces a lot with what you've heard from Paul and Natasha as well, and Ealing High Street's task force is really helping us do that. So a bit of a dive into some data. I won't spend too much time on these slides because you will have seen them and perhaps we can revisit them a bit later. But they should give you a sense of where our economy is at, and in particular how our economy is comparing to other West London boroughs and London as well. So this slide here just shows how Ealing's comparing in terms of out-of-work benefits. We are, in terms of female and male, we are reporting higher than London and England averages. So that's something that we'll be prioritising over the next year to try and get to the bottom of that and develop projects and programs to really reverse that trend. I think anecdotally what I can say here from some of the evidence we've seen so far is that Ealing is maybe bouncing back a bit slower as a result of the pandemic because of its over-reliance on the aviation sector, so Heathrow Airport and its large supply chain networks, and including Park Royal, which is the UK's largest industrial estate. So those areas were impacted quite significantly, so the bounce back maybe a little bit slower. But we're working closely with those partners to make sure we address that. Again, this slide just shows a bit more detail around the age demographics. So we can see here the over 50s are the ones that are the highest percentage out of work or on out of work benefits, and then it's down to the younger demographic of 16 to 24. And this slide here shows the London comparison. So we're second only to Brent in terms of our 6 West London neighbours. And again, that correlates with the furlough data. So when the pandemic happened, Ealing was the second highest, most furloughed borough due to that impact I mentioned earlier. And Brent was actually the top as well. So it gives you a sense of some of the similarities across both of those boroughs. Interesting slide here showing the annual trend. So as you'd expect, it spiked in 21 due to the pandemic. Then it came down into 22 and 23. It came down again, but then it's just raised slightly again in January of this year, and that is possibly linked to the cost of living crisis as well, and some impacts of that. But again, this is a deeper dive data that we need to be picking up going forward. This slide here, I noticed the big red arrow, which I've added here. So this is a positive slide. This is showing particularly adult learning and skills, how that team is performing compared to the rest of London. So you can see here, we are above average on the further education and skills participants, and we're also above average on the further education and skills achievements as well. So I think Brent is just ahead of us in terms of West London, and then a few other London boroughs there as well. Newham's top of that, which is positive. And this information just came out a couple of weeks ago. This slide here is just a different way of showing that, a bit more detail around the actual numbers of Ealing residents that benefit from Ealing adult learning and skills. And this slide is useful as well because it shows that Ealing is performing above average, and in some cases well above average when you compare ourselves to London and Great Britain, particularly on the Regulated Qualifications Framework 4, which is positive. Now a bit of a deep dive into some further data, more focused on actual some job numbers as well. So we commissioned a company called PRD last autumn to do some work with us around the state of Ealing's economy and how we were actually performing in terms of the 10,000 new jobs. So we're pretty much halfway through the administration now. So it was a really good time to do that piece of work. And also a bit of a look at the growth sector situation in Ealing as well. So this graph here shows some issues, some challenges that we're dealing with in Ealing. So despite the really good things about Ealing, the fact we've got 2 opportunity areas, one in Southall, we've got one in the OBDC area, and we've got, it's a hyper-connected borough, and it's a place that businesses and investment wants to come. We do see a bit of stagnation around employment growth. So you can see in this graph, London is the green line and Ealing is the pink line on both. So that's the same for jobs and businesses. So certainly this is an area that the new department will be diverting more resource into, both in terms of getting the correct data, but also targeting our finite resources to ensure that we can help address those trends. Not all of this is within our gift, so we have to work closely with our West London Alliance colleagues, our West London business colleagues, plus London councils as well, to see if we can all work together in addressing this. It's not just an Ealing issue. This slide here, very busy, and you might struggle to see this, but I'll just summarize it quickly. Left-hand column shows that Ealing, in terms of its wages for Ealing residents, is low. So we're a borough that doesn't pay the wages, that we're not paying high enough wages for our residents. And then the middle column shows that we're not paying enough London living wages either. And on the right-hand side, I mentioned earlier, Ealing was the second highest furloughed. In fact, it was Newham, not Brent. And when you actually add in the extra factor of Ealing having quite high house prices and high rents, if you combine that with low wages, you've got a perfect storm, and that means there's a lot of in-work poverty for Ealing residents, and something we're very acutely aware of and trying to address through our various programs. And that's on a borough-wide basis. There is some disparities between some of the 7 towns, but as a borough, that's a challenge we have to work around. Also, just following on from that PRD data that you've just seen, that data is static from last year, but to evolve that further, just a couple of weeks ago, we've commissioned a really interesting tool called the Data City. So that's going to provide us with live information on all the growth sectors across Ealing, and it'll give us some insights as well, like which sectors and which businesses are securing investment through the government or through catapult schemes, because they're the businesses that investors have confidence in, and they're the businesses we want to really talk to and build better relationships as well. So the department also has some key frameworks and delivery tools. So Work Ealing and Learn Ealing. So the new department's really fully integrating those approaches. So Work Ealing focuses on employment skills, Learn Ealing focuses on adults and skills as well. So we're putting in place a number of initiatives to integrate those further. We've got a number of websites as well, which are regularly updated and available to all our residents and businesses and well used by them. And just to focus on some of the key employment and training programs that we are working on during this current financial year. And these are all tailored to address some of those challenges I've mentioned earlier. So, for example, we've recently commissioned, well, not recently, but we've been working with a company called Beam, who supports the homeless and those at risk of homelessness. And we see that's a trend that's rising across London. We've also got Action West London, who's supporting young black men into London living wage jobs. We're setting up green skills boot camps, supporting ex-offenders. So you can see here we're really focusing a lot of our efforts on those most marginalised and those that are suffering the most in our society. So really picking up on the council plan and trying to reduce inequality and get those people up to where they need to be. Some of the training programs coming through our adult education and skills service. So focusing on particularly on digital skills, because everybody needs those to access jobs in the future as well, jobs of today and jobs of the future. We've launched 4 learning zones as well to have a human interface with our residents around different parts of the borough. And yeah, there's a number of other things in there as well, particularly supporting residents through ESOL as well, because Ealing's got 160 different languages, one of the most diverse boroughs, and we want to ensure we support residents where English isn't their first language to have a real good grasp of that to access new jobs. I did mention UK SPF earlier, so that's the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. That has replaced the old model of European Social Fund following Brexit. So we've got some money through this allocated. It is actually less than what we used to get through the European Union, but we're making the most of it, and we're focusing it on a number of key initiatives. You can see here some of the things I mentioned already. Over 50s as well. So picking up, that issue about over 50 seem to be the folk that have the highest ratio of unemployment as well. So we're really underpinning all our delivery and resources by evidence. That's really critical. We do that. It's all underpinned by evidence, and we really are building a strong picture of evidence across 7 towns at the moment. Good for Aileen, I mentioned that previously. So it was launched last year by Councillor Mason, and then later last year we launched a brand new website, Good Feeling website, which we can share after this as well, which really sort of promotes Aileen as a premier place to invest, to get more businesses coming through into Aileen to help diversify and make the economy more resilient. I also recently set up an Aileen Jobs and Skills Forum. So that's the forum that's going to help us co-draft the Aileen Jobs and Skills Strategy and Action Plan. We had our inaugural meeting last week, so we have people like Heathrow, OPDC, GLA were there as well, and some of our large employers. So really well attended forum and very enthusiastic forum to help us do what we need to do in Aileen. And we're going to be setting up growth sector forums as well, which will ultimately report into that more strategic forum. I'll come on to some of the growth sectors in a minute. 10 objectives of the forum, which all members have now signed up to. I won't go through these. You can refer to those in your pack. What is the Aileen and Jobs and Skills Strategy? Again, hopefully you've had a look at this, but it does what it says in the tin, really. It's about integrating everything we've got, making better use of our finite resources, and ensuring we co-develop and co-deliver this with key partners, i.e. the businesses. They're one of our biggest partners, plus other big agents as well that I've mentioned earlier. And we hope to bring it to Cabinet in June of this year and launch it in July, and then it'll be a 5-year strategy likely. I did mention the local plan earlier, but I think it's important just to reinforce the importance of the local plan. Our existing local plan, which dates back to 2013, has got policies around the economy and high streets. However, we've really beefed those up for this new local plan. So we actually, the department I lead, invested quite a bit of resource in developing key employment evidence over and above what you would normally have to help underpin stronger policies in the local plan around employment growth and supporting local businesses. Just a quick reflection on some of the other key strategies that we're very cognizant of. So the new Jobs and Skills Strategy will be picking up key objectives and themes from these strategies, including our Race Equality Commission, very important, our Land and Property Strategy, and our Health and Wellbeing Strategy, amongst others. So it's going to sort of triangulate all those as well. It won't be sitting on its own. Good for Aileen. This is just a screenshot from the website, which it's gone down pretty well with our local business community and getting some good traffic. We developed this also working with key people like London and Partners, who is the Mayor's inward investment arm, and they've also been looking at this and giving us some guidance on how we can improve it as well. It's a website that will be continually improving as we go forward. This is just some snapshots on the website again. A key thing that the website has, which is quite really positive, it's called the Investors Portal. So that allows our developers, investors, and businesses to upload their opportunities. So, for example, any vacant floor space they might have in one of their assets. And then if you own a business and you want to come to Aileen, just go into that website and you can find out where it is and be put in touch with the landlord or landowner. Again, really important tool that we need to evolve further. I mentioned Acton and Park Royal Creative Enterprise Zone earlier, which has been up and running now for a couple of years and delivering some great stuff. We also delivered an Aileen Pioneer Fund following COVID, and we've supported quite a few businesses within the sectors that we want to support further. So food and drink, creative and digital, and the green economy as well. And we are in touch with these businesses, and it's really nice to see that they're actually growing and employing new people as well. So it's a bit of a legacy that we've created there. And that is me. It was going to be shoplifting in the high streets next, but that's the end of my presentation, Chair. So thank you.
Chair, can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure. Yep.
Pressing the wrong one. Thank you for an excellent presentation. Can I just ask you again, the vacant store space, what was the email for that?
Oh yeah, so we've got, I'll just go back to those slides. Thanks, Councillor. So we've got a new website called Good Freeling.
Sorry?
Good Freeling, sorry. Good Freeling is the new website, and within that website, we've got something called an investors portal. And an investor or a business or a landowner can upload their spaces on there, their opportunities on there, and that's a bit of a brokerage service. So then businesses who might want to come to Ealing can find out, oh, in Southall there's X square meters of retail, in Greenford there's X square meters of industrial that's vacant. So it's about, you know, that creating a service for those businesses to make it much easier for them to come to the borough and invest in the borough.
No, that's very helpful. That's sensible. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you very much. That was a very comprehensive view. I had a few questions and just making notes on the slides, so bear with me. So just on slide 9, good for Ealing, just to know if there's been any significant interest yet from private investors on that front, and if what the promotion is around that as well. I also had a question on slide 12. So an increase in employers paying the London living wage. So just to see how you're planning to enforce or nudge employers to do that within the borough. And then I also on this table. So you said, so this is page 26 on the data. So Ealing is quite low down on number 28 for resident earnings. I think you mentioned that that's quite recent, the data for that, or because you have 2018 for the second column and 21. Well, and could you just remind me of the date for that? And was that why we commissioned Data City to provide more live data? And if so, how often is industrial data sort of updated on that? And I don't know when you've commissioned them, but do we have any insights yet from them? And if we do, is it cooperating with the growth sector forum, which you mentioned in slide 9? Sorry, I'm going back and forth, but I was making notes as you were going through. So yeah, that's me for now. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for your questions. So the first one relating to investors. Yes, we have been widely promoting this website. There was a big launch last September, just in advance of London Real Estate Forum. It was standing room only at the launch, which is great. So we had Councillor Mason and a number of key stakeholders sitting on a panel to talk about that. We are getting a lot of interest in Ealing, particularly from the creative and digital industries. So Ealing's it's already got a rich heritage of film, like come back to Ealing Studios. But we've got a demand for film production space in West London generally, but in Ealing as well. So we're getting some calls about that, and in particular, Peter George, our strategic director, has been fielding some of those calls, and we've been taking those calls on board, particularly working with my counterpart Chris Bunting, who's been leading on, you know, Ealing's culture manifesto and cultural infrastructure plan. So it's a really strong area of focus for us, and we are highly likely to set up a creative industries sector forum to bring key partners together. In terms of your second question, increase in London living wage, yes, this is a real top priority for us. And we have Councillor Brett actually chairing the London Living Wage Action Group. And there's a London Living Wage campaign that's been developed as well. We've got some targets in the council plan about increasing the number of London Living Wage employers. That is a challenge. I'll be honest about that, and we're slightly behind of where we want to be. But we're going to be putting in place some actions to get us back to where we need to be for next financial year. So we're in dialogue with the London Living Wage, well, other boroughs, what they're doing, and also the London Living Wage Foundation as well. We're putting together an action plan to really put more resource into that. And we think the High Streets Task Force can do more in that area as well. So we've got a really good High Streets Task Force set up. I mean, they can do more. They can do more for us in that area. In terms of the data, yes, well picked up. You can see the dates on that. So this actual image here was taken from our Industrious Ealing data, which was data we commissioned to underpin Ealing's local plan. So that additional employment and economy data to really reinforce the local plan. So it is a little bit out of date. So the Ealing may have went up or down slightly on this, but what we're doing now through the new data set we've commissioned called the Data City is we'll be able to update that. It's literally only 1 week old. We only got it a couple of weeks ago, so we still haven't had a chance to properly interrogate it yet. But once we have interrogated it, I'll look forward to really sharing some of the key outputs from that and some of the key trends that are happening in our local economy, particularly around the growth sectors. And I look forward to, in particular, updating Councillor Brett on that in one of her future briefings. So yeah, the date is slightly out of date, but we're working on it to get it up to date.
Thank you. I just had a sort of follow-up question on this in particular, because obviously on the other slide about sort of learning and training, it showed that we were doing quite well, that we were getting lots of people in the borough sort of in high levels of sort of education and training, etc. But it's not translating, according to this so far, into actually people getting sort of better paid jobs as a result of that training. So where is that disconnect? So we're doing well in training people, but then that's not being reflected in the earnings. So how do we evaluate whether what's called Ealing learning, etc., what they're doing, if they're training people with the right skills that are needed in the borough, and two, how we can ensure that when the training that they're doing is actually leading to better paid jobs. Because otherwise, it's great doing the training, but if you're not getting anything at the end of it, then what was the benefit of doing it?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So I'll try my best to answer this question, but I might invite my colleague Christy to come in as well, who heads up the Adult Learning Service. But what I can say is that there possibly is a little bit of a lag here in terms of how that work is translating into these metrics. And this metric is a little bit out of date. I'd be hoping that perhaps Ealing's performing slightly better than what this is showing. So a few key things we've done to help address this is, firstly, we have created a brand new department to further integrate those key services. So Learn Ealing, Work Ealing, Good for Ealing, and our regeneration programme. That new department just went live now. And we're already seeing some dividends from that, particularly from our external partners and external businesses. They welcome that we're doing this, and there's more of a focus to support them. The other thing we're currently looking at is refreshing and recalibrating the offer as well of Learn Ealing and Work Ealing. So we're taking our cue from the GLA. So the GLA gave us adult education budget, and as part of that, they stipulate what sort of sectors we should be supporting. So how should we be supporting Ealing residents now to access jobs, well, in the short term, medium term, and long term? So we're going to be creating new pathways to jobs, starting right through from school, right through Learn Ealing, right through Work Ealing, through our developer the regeneration program, right through our academic institutions. So creating really clear pathways for each of our sectors. It's disjointed at the moment, and that's what we know as a team, and we know that from feedback from partners. It is disjointed, but we're integrating it, and we're going to be creating those pathways. The jobs and skills strategy will be a really key moment for that, because it will outline those pathways as well, and there'll be buy-in from all the partners in helping us co-curate those pathways. So there is a little bit of a lag, Councillor, on this, but we've identified that, and we are prioritising our resources to address that. One final thing before I invite Christy, and if she's anything to add, is we've recently commissioned a consultant also to help us really get to the bottom of our skills and adult learning offer as well. How are we doing what we should be in terms of what our growth sectors need, not short term, medium term, and long term? And also, are we integrating well with other providers across Ealing and West London generally? So there's other providers that do training as well. And is there any duplication there we can avoid? Can we prioritise our resources perhaps better can we leverage more funding from the GLA perhaps as well? So we're doing that really important piece of work at this moment in time, and I'd look forward to reporting back on the results of that at some point in the near future. Presley, I don't want to put you in the spot, but is there anything you would like to come in on in terms of that?
Yes, Connor, thank you. And could you please show the slide where we have the figures for further education participation for Ealing, because I can put that into context. The next one, please. Okay, so actually the previous slide shows the total participation of Ealing residents in further education, and that would include not only the council's adult community learning, but also the college and other training providers. So the figures that you can see here, it's at the top participants, so the number of people who participated in training. So it's just over 10,000, of which about 1,200 people came through the council's adult community learning, or adult learning and skills, as we call it, as we know it now. In terms of achievements, that reflects the number of courses that the residents completed and successfully achieved. So the two figures would give us the overall, and the 3,916 are the number of courses that residents completed through the council's adult learning and skills. I think what's important to point out is that this is the academic year coming out of the lockdown. Within the offer that adult learning and skills has, we support residents with low or no qualifications, many of whom have English as a second language and indeed are operating at very low level. We call them pre-entry level. So this is just people with very basic skills, not only in terms of English, but maths, digital, etc. So one of the key aims for the Council's Adult Learning and Skills is progression into higher training and ultimately into employment. And as Connor was saying, part of what we are doing is trying to identify where the gaps are in provision, so that we can work closely with the college, but also with the universities in terms of creating those pathways into employment. I can give you some examples of businesses we have worked with. For example, the Lee France in the Southall Industrial Unit. We supported their workforce developing their English and math skills, the majority of whom had been living in Ealing for a very long time, but they lived very much within their own community, so their communication skills weren't up to standard in terms of being able to progress even within the same organization to hold better paid jobs. So I think, going back to what Connor was saying, the drive in supporting residents upskill and be able to access better paid jobs is very high on the agenda. I think in terms of participants that have gone into other training providers in Ealing, and as I said, that not only includes the college but also small training organizations, I think it could be a good piece of research that we could do in terms of the offer. And it's a very good question. Why is it that if people are completing higher level courses, they are not accessing better paid jobs? But I just think it's important that we know what the context of each provider is. And for the council's adult learning and skills, we mainly deliver courses from pre-entry up to level 2, which is equivalent to a GCSE, just to support people back into training and into further training and employment.
Thank you. I think it's just, I guess, it's triangulating the three things of the learning, the higher paid jobs, and then the unemployment rate, which again was higher than the London average as well. So it's so obviously the Ealing Learning is trying to help people with those pre-entry courses, but then we should be hoping to try and get that unemployment rate down to the London average or below. And so it's how all those three things fit together. And I guess obviously it's early days, as you say, it's all renewed, but whether, in a future iteration of this panel or in another forum, I think it would be good, in a year's time or whatever, to review actually, have those numbers started to shift in a direction that's showing that, A, with unemployment, and B, with, wage growth, those things are pointing in the right direction in terms of the learning piece is sort of targeting things in the right way. I saw that Councillor Summers had his hand up, and then we'll go back to any other questions in the room.
Chair, Mr. Mida, I want to ask a question, please.
Okay, we'll do Councillor Summers, then Councillor Mida, you're next after that.
Thank you.
Yeah, my question was going back to something Connor was talking about, the film industry and buying, or the sort of growth of sort of the need for studio filming sets, etc. I've been listening to podcasts and various discussions in recent weeks saying that that could actually sort of go into reverse because of AI. AI is sort of so developed that it can be used to sort of imagine whole sort of film sets without the need for actual, filming and, traditional, and quite a lot of American sort of film producers have stopped their plans to build sort of expanded studios. So I just a bit worried about, that growth that we predicted, and whether AI could suddenly sort of cut it short.
Thanks, Councillor. Yeah, AI is something that's going to impact in all sectors, including our own organisation here at Ealing Council, where we're embracing it, particularly in our directorate. It's a really good question. It's something we probably need to explore further with that particular, well, all sectors, I guess. But your comment on the film sector is particularly pertinent. On the other hand, the benefits of AI doing that could be quite useful, because traditional film studio space is quite land hungry, and conventionally that could be lower densities of jobs for quite a large chunk of land with an industrial area. So how can we maybe position ourselves and position that sector to reap the benefits of AI, of maybe having a demand for smaller spaces, but providing the same number of jobs, perhaps? Again, I'm not an expert in that, but that's just one thing that springs to mind. I think a key thing that we will explore and work on much more is when we do set up these sector forums. That's going to be an amazing opportunity for the council to broker and enable proper conversations with those businesses, with those investors, those academic institutions, the research and development, Imperial, for example, with the West Tech Corridor, bringing all those people together to really explore these issues and challenges and see how we can make the most out of them. But certainly, Councillor Summers, that AI point is a really useful one, and something that we will be thinking about. But for all sectors, I guess.
Yeah, and at the risk of sounding like a Luddite, I mean, it's kind of scary that AI is coming for all our jobs. I think I'm a journalist, and we're not, but in the film industry, apparently, it can do everything from sort of script writing to almost sort of brushing the studios afterwards. So it's a bit worrying.
Yeah, and it's something we're going to have to work with, embrace, but also address the challenges of AI as well, certainly.
Thank you. Councillor Mida.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just watching and listening. All the briefing is very nice, very good. The officers are there trying their best. But my question is that the slide they just show it, adults learning and skills team deliver 1,285 participants, 3,916 achievements. The learning people, but still, this is 2024 now. The people are so many unemployed here as youngsters. How can they cover up? They are creating more jobs. My question is that, because the youngster people, they are unemployed. That's the only the Heathrow they are creating the jobs. I can't see anywhere else. So please, can you give me the answer?
Okay, so just to clarify the question, so is it in particular to this slide we can see now and the training and qualifications that we're providing for young people?
Because this is slide 2022, now it's 2024.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, we do have well, I'll probably divert to Christy, but we do have data we're gathering as well for this current academic year as well. Christy, did you want
Yes.
to come in on that too?
Yes, just to say that the data that we presented in this slide is just to compare with the previous slide. So again, if you go back one slide, please, Connor. Right, so this is the data that we have available for the number of participants in further education within the academic year of 21-22. So we thought it would be beneficial for the panel to see how the breakdown compares, which is what we did in the following slide. So if you can see here where the red arrow is, that's how Ealing compares to the rest of London. And what we thought would be helpful, Connor, if you come back to the next slide, please, is to give a breakdown of the residents that completed courses through Ealing Adult Learning as compared to those who completed courses through other providers in the borough. And of those courses they completed, how many were through Ealing Adult Learning. So yes, we can provide the data for this last academic year and the current academic year we're in, but we just wanted to do a breakdown of the previous slides, just to put it into context.
Thank you.
No,
Great,
you're
thank
welcome.
you. I can't see. Oh, we have got another question in the room. Yeah.
I just wanted to follow what Fabio said about the disparity between training and jobs. Is it possible that we're training people in Ealing and we're losing them to other boroughs in London? And do we have any initiatives in place to try and retain that talent within Ealing? And because the wages are lower, as you said, in Ealing, could that possibly be another factor as to why we're losing the talent? Because they've now educated themselves to a certain level and expect certain remuneration and are not getting it. So
yeah.
Well, if I may come in,
Sorry, I wasn't even...
Oh, sorry, Connor, were you?
No, you come in first if you want, and then I'll follow up. Thanks.
No, I was just saying that I don't think we have that data in detail, but I think it's important to point out that for many of the residents that attend courses, particularly with Ealing Adult Learning, the starting points are very low. And as I said earlier, it's all about supporting progression into further training. So that could explain why some of the unemployment figures are still low, because somebody who is operating at pre-entry level in English will need a little bit longer to be able to access a job and indeed a better paid job. But it could be that residents are also finding work outside of Ealing. Sorry, Connor, back to you.
No, that's fine, Christy. Thanks for that. I was just going to say that there's a package of things that we're working on, not just in this department, but across the council to address some of that. So there is a challenge for Ealing. We're really accessible. We've, the things I talked about earlier in that nice slide showing Ealing in its strategic context. We've got 5 Elizabeth line stations, etc. But there is anecdotal evidence that quite a few Ealing residents do work outside the borough, and they're travelling maybe to central London or other parts of the home counties, etc. So there's a risk that Ealing could become a dormitory suburb, so people just live here and work elsewhere, and that's something that has been picked up, by Councillor Mason in particular, and the council plan, or the local plan that we've drafted has picked that up as well. So it's about understanding Ealing as a borough, but also understanding the 7 towns and what are the unique characteristics of each of the towns that can actually want people that live here, but also work here as well. So it's about those sort of policies and interventions we're taking to make sure that can happen. One of those things you may have heard is the 20-minute neighbourhood. So the departments that I lead is progressing the 20-minute neighbourhood concept. So again, that's about creating neighbourhoods that can enable people to live and work and access necessary amenities within that sort of 10-minute walking to and 10-minute walking back situation. You won't get it in it for every amenity, but it's a real strategic move from the council and manifested in our local plan now to say to developers and businesses and investors, you must sort of work within this framework going forward to make our communities more sustainable. And that also picks up on our climate action requirements as well. Things like the regional park as well, which we're developing. So having a regional park in Ealing makes it a borough that's much more attractive to want to live in as well, and much more attractive to want to work in. Things like the CZ Creative Enterprise Zone. We know anecdotally that since that was set up, that lots of creative and cultural businesses that are elsewhere in London want to come to North Acton Park Royal and be part of that. So it's about a whole package of things you want to do, and the Good for Ealing brand ultimately is bringing that together. And the strapline of Ealing being a premier place to invest is a key part of that. So with that package, it'll take a little bit of time because they're quite big strategic moves we're making, and the local plan is based over a 15-year period. But we do feel that those trends of potentially people living in Ealing and working elsewhere will be reversed through that package, and also a much stronger focus on our growth sectors, particularly the sectors that have more higher paying wages and knowledge economy type jobs. Getting more of those into the borough as well will see those wages go up as well when you work out the median. So it's a whole package of things we're currently developing to really reverse that trend. But yeah, we're very alive to the fact that perhaps over the last period of time, maybe that was happening, unfortunately. But we have to address it, and we're trying to do that.
Thank you. I'm just conscious of time. We've still got the team from University of West London who have patiently been waiting or leaving. I wanted to bring them in. So Colin, do you want to turn up your mic and bring them in? But thank you for the presentation and to your team as well for helping to answer all those questions. So as I say, we've got Eduardo, Angela and Stephen online from the University of West London. So I think if I hand over to Eduardo, I think you wanted to come in, sort of come in first.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you for coming along.
No, thank you. I'm talking on behalf of Jonathan Eastwood, who was unavailable today. So I've got a short presentation which I'll just share. Just give me 2 seconds. Let me just get this up. Tell me when you can see this, please. Can everyone see this?
We can see it, yeah.
Perfect. So just about the support which we provide at the University of West London to local Ealing employers. This presentation will just cover some of the areas which we can support, we have supported and we're currently supporting. Let me just move over, next slide. So at University of West London, we run a number of job fairs throughout the year. They're specific to, let's say, the schools which we work with. So they're spread out. So we just had like a part-time jobs fair just today, actually. We've got a creative careers fair on Thursday coming up, and we run a number of engagement activities. We do employee workshops, so that could be either in-class presentations, or we offer like a free monthly employee takeover sessions, which employers can get involved with. We have got a vacancy posting service, which is free for employees to use. It's called the Student Hub. If any of you, if local employers would like to find out more information, they feel free to get them to reach out to us. We are offering our graduate talent bank, which is a newly launched activity, which is matching graduates who are seeking employment within within organisations. We've got our graduate internship program, which the deadline for local Ealing employers and West London employers to apply for bidding is coming up on the 17th of March. So we've been running that for a number of years now. It's been opened up to local employers for about 2 to 3 years, from my understanding. During lockdown, I think it was initially proposed that we were there to support our local employers and SMEs. So yeah, we've been running that for a number of years, but the support to local employers has been quite recent. Just to give a bit of overview of the vacancies, the jobs which are currently being advertised on the Student Hub platform. So we've got about 336 registered employers currently. About 119 employers have advertised jobs on our portal since 2020. 33 employers advertised about 506 jobs in the calendar year of 2023 alone. Some of the key areas which we've noticed are quite popular in terms of advertising, have included hospitality, tourism, IT and technology, teaching and education, as well as charities and volunteering, and retail, business and commercial services. Charities of volunteering, you may not know, but we have actually got a volunteer team at the University of West London, so where they look to work with local charities and non-profit organisations and government organisations where to get involved in local community. So that's something which we do think is beneficial for our students to get experience. So yeah, that's that kind of reflects those figures there. Just to give you an overview of our graduate internship program, which I mentioned in a previous slide. So the university does have funds for small businesses and startups in West London region to support businesses in recruiting, support our graduates as well, but also to support local businesses. We offer fully matched and matched funding for our services, and it's for a fixed period of about 24 weeks at a full-time rate of so that's 35 hours per week. We're currently still receiving interest from employers and we have reached out to a lot of the local business areas to promote this program in West London, including Ealing. The graduate program runs from the 1st of July until mid-December, and the rates for pay is the London living wage. So we are matching that, but yeah, there's some added criteria there. So yeah, we have been promoting it. We have been networking and getting involved with local businesses to see, if they want to get on board with this. I mean, of course, there's a commitment involved. So yeah, we have been reaching out. So some of the key eligibility criteria has been that they need to be based in West London, boroughs of Brent, Harrow, Ealing, Hammersmith, and Fulham, Hillingdon, Hounslow, and Richmond. They have to have specific turnover, so we're supporting SME, so turnover less than 10 million, or gross assets of less than 10 million. Fewer than about 50 employers. We do encourage employers to have public and employee liability insurance for health and safety reasons, and organisation must have office space, because we do see the benefit of we can work hybrid, but the added benefit of working with an employer, especially with an intern face to face, we do that adds a lot more growth and development, and hopefully the idea would be that an employer would actually like to keep our graduates long term. Just a bit of overview of like local employers over the years who've have engaged with our services. So Action West London, a University of West London Student Union, which is a separate organisation, New Talent Fashion, the Ealing Foundation, Brandwin Business Support, Too Many Dreams, Buzz Sparks, Opinion Hub, and Young Ealing Foundation have gone through the system and have supported our graduates for that period of July to about mid-December. So those are examples of employers which have supported us over the years. Just some key dates. So as mentioned, the 17th of March is the deadline for employers to get on board with the external bids. So we provide we can send them links. We have reached out with links for how they can apply, as well as examples of job descriptions and support which we can provide. It does need to go to panel, so not all bids will be successful, because it does need to be looked at by our senior team. So that tends to be about mid-March. We then the aim is for the roles to go live about 26th of April, for shortlisting between about 29th of April to about 3rd of May. We are looking at quick turnaround, so we've got a team behind us who are supporting to get this through. So interviews are tend to take place between the 7th of May to the 7th of June, with the hard deadline of the 1st of July for graduates to start until the 13th of December. So that's pretty much about our services. I might lead into Westmont Hub, and I'll stop sharing my screen.
Hi everyone, I'm Angela Canoir, and Stephen is on the line as well. Stephen, do you want to kick off about Westmont Enterprise Hub?
Could you put up our slide? We've got one slide, so it's not death by PowerPoint.
Yes, I can. I'll just do that right.
There we are. That's us. I'll kick off if that's okay. Before I do run into the slide, there was a remark made by one of the councillors earlier, which I'll pick up, which was regarding AI. And he declared himself a Luddite. No, sir, you're not. There is. I have a memory, faint as it may be, of a speech by Harold Wilson in the 60s, with the white heat of technology that was meant to give us all 3-day working weeks and so much more leisure time. And here we are at 8:30 on a week evening, using technology which enables us to spend more time working. My gut feeling on AI, and we're seeing AI in much of what we do with businesses, both startups and indeed with existing functioning businesses, commercial businesses that are no longer in startup stage, is that they're using AI to deepen their innovation and to find new ways of solving problems. Good products solve problems. They don't just end up in the market. And our startups and the businesses we work with are involved in solving problems. There has to be something that it fixes. And if AI can provide a fix to a problem, and there's a commercial resource to that, and there is an innovation, then it will be, and surely could be, for the benefit of all involved. I will address the slide now. The hub, what and why. The hub was put into place in 2018, following a long consultation period with me in a previous incarnation at Hounslow Chamber of Commerce, now West London Chamber, and the investors who funded the hub. And it was put together in response to something that was clearly apparent in West London, and that is this huge creative talent pool that exists. And that talent pool exists as a legacy from what's always been in West London. You can track it down in a crescent across West London, which ends up in Shepperton, and you can make visiting stop-offs at a number of studios, one of which Ealing Studio is opposite the university in St Mary's. And these places of innovation and talent and creativity have etched their mark on our society and indeed on Ealing's community, because we are right in the middle of that crescent. And we are part of that creative resource. We have 2 creative schools, all of which turning out graduates, which are moving into jobs. As a university, we are securing jobs for our graduates really quickly. And I'm not talking very short-term jobs or low-paid jobs. I'm talking jobs that are moving our graduates into full-time, good-earning achievements and jobs within 18 months of leaving the university. Those are the NSS stats that puts us in a position where other universities would like to be, and we find ourselves at the top of the league tables across the country, not just in London. And the hub was put together to create an ideation space, a thinking space for students primarily, for staff secondarily, but also, more importantly, in terms of this conversation perhaps, for businesses, local businesses that had ideas and had nowhere to go with those ideas. And that's what the hub is for. It soon became apparent we needed to find a way of commercializing those ideas. And so the hub also became an incubator. And the incubation model we operate on has evolved over the time that the hub's been open. I came in when all we just had was a space, and we built it consistently over the years, even through COVID, where we've got businesses to market and successful investments follow, and indeed continue to grow in those startup businesses that we have working with us at the moment. We currently have 8, 9 incubating startups and another 4 companies under contract that we're working with for investment. But the idea of the hub was to ideate and to think new ideas, to innovate and to dream things that could be commercialized. And the space has worked. It was for students, it was for staff, and it is for local businesses to use as local working space. It's a co-working space. We have 18 co-working businesses that come in over a monthly period. They take space, they work in the space, and they are incredibly successful in the space. And that success creates an environment of expectation, and an environment of innovation, and an environment of success. And that success rubs off. It rubs off in the thinking of our startups and in the thinking of those that are looking to come in as incubating businesses. So that's what, and that's why we changed the ideation program a couple, 3 years ago and created venture making. Venture making is a program which demystifies the business startup process and the business design process for people that aren't actually businesses. They are innovators themselves, they are visionaries, and they wouldn't understand one end of a P&L to the other end of a P&L, and neither should we expect them to. And so the language that venture making uses is constructive day-by-day language, and it talks about desirability. Is there a need for the product? Is there a problem to be solved? Is there a desire in the marketplace? We look at viability, which is scale. Are we selling 100 units of whatever, if it's a service or a product, or are we selling 10,000 in the first 6 months? We're looking at feasibility because, yes, money is important, because money is a tool, it's a vehicle, it's something that's useful to businesses, and it's the blood that flows through a company that gives it life. But in that respect, it is only a tool. It also is the tool that creates jobs. It is the tool that creates new opportunity, and it's the tool that creates continued innovation and research and development. What we do then, of course, we add to that adaptability. One of the things we discovered in COVID is that we had to be pretty fleet of foot, fairly nimble, fairly agile. And in that agility, we learned how to pivot. The hub pivoted. Many of our businesses did pivot, some couldn't. And so one of the things we build into venture making is this capacity to pivot. The what if question is always asked. And we also use that what if to measure the capacity of our startups in their process against the competitor. And then there's the biggie, the one we've introduced, which is sustainability. Now, sustainability, we're not just talking about environmental impact. Of course, we are including environmental impact, but sustainability is the whole argument of the UN SDGs, where we're looking at the role of people, the importance of people. The first 8 SDGs are about people, communities, families, and indeed the capacity and responsibility of business to ensure that people do have a living wage and are able to heat their homes and are able to live a life happily in the environment where they live and work. That's a role of business. It's not just there to make money. The money has to do something. And in employing people, part of the ethic and of what we would look at is compliance with those UN SDGs which focus on people. Those are the fundamentals of venture making, and that we have developed and built into a program which is now integrated into the degree processes of the university. I was delivering venture making on viability today to 6 students from the School of Health and Social Sciences. Yesterday, I was delivering it to a group of 21 undergrads from the Claude Littner Business School, where we're doing the coalface work on how to build a business, which is what venture making is. So that's seeking out and developing, not teaching, because we're not a teaching unit in the university. The hub is not a teaching centre. We facilitate, we encourage, we get people to think differently about innovation and indeed business. We are looking for entrepreneurs. We are not building entrepreneurs. We're not creating them. We're looking at entrepreneurial talent and trying to find ways in which people can behave more entrepreneurially. And so release them from their myopic view of the world and take a more 360 view of what's going on. And interestingly, most of our startups come from our creative schools. That's not by design, that's by fluke. Those are the ones that come to us with these bright ideas that we take on, look for, run through venture making, and then, of course, incubate if there is the capacity to do so. Indeed, in order to do so, we create minimal viable products and we look to incubate within 9 months, which means the companies need cash. We have a working relationship with a fund manager where we have access to a considerable amount, many millions of pounds, that they are prepared to not allocate, but give us the first offer to for our startups. Yes, they have to go through the same due diligence, but the process of funding them is innovative. The methodology of funding them is innovative and different, but actually that money is available to those startups. And if we bring startups and entrepreneurs in from the local community, that money is for them too. That investment, that fund, those funds under management are available to them too. It was only last Thursday I also discovered that the fund managers have access to a separate fund, which is a sustainability fund. And they have, I can probably tell you how much because I don't think it's a secret. They have £500 million worth of cash under fund management, specifically for sustainable startup businesses. So obviously we're looking at ways in which we can do that. So my part of the story is that we're developing business ideas. We're growing those ideas into commercial businesses. We're accessing money to do that from the market, and we are affording opportunity to businesses from both within the university, the student, the teaching body, and indeed for this purpose this evening, it's available, completely available to entrepreneurs, would-be entrepreneurs from the local community. And that's where we started in our relationship with you to develop entrepreneurship a year ago. Angela, I'll hand over to you.
Thanks, Stephen. So since last year, we won a bid from Ealing Council to deliver a startup enterprise support programme for women in Ealing. And since that time, we've been planning and we've been recruiting women for that programme. The first cohort kicked off in February, just recently. We're in week 4 at the moment. And with the view to having two additional cohorts. The next one starts in mid-May and then the next one in September. So far, so good. The women on the programme, 15 in total, are very enthused. They're from diverse communities, from different aspects, different areas of the borough. The delivery is within the community, which is really important because some of those women won't necessarily access mainstream business support services. So it's important to have that local presence so they feel part of that community, but feel they can access that kind of support program, which has happened in Southall at the present time. The first cohort's taking place in the Parkside Yards in Green Quarter. And the feedback I'm getting from the women who are on the programme, very enthused and very enthusiastic. They have different challenges, different circumstances that they are dealing with, but ultimately their vision, their determination and their enthusiasm to cultivate and develop their business ideas is coming to the fore every week. And I think on the 17th of April is when we have the first sort of celebration of their achievements at the hub. The mayor has been invited, and Councillor Brett and additional council colleagues have been invited to that. So that'll be a celebration of the inaugural cohort. But ultimately, we've been building links with local community groups, which are vital in that process of accessing those communities. Southall Community Alliance, Let's Go Southall, even within Parkside Yards, there's a community there. There's a really big community initiative. I've recently been speaking to the West London Alliance, had a meeting with them today, actually yesterday, and Michael Collins as well from the Injurious Group, who can provide a potential pipeline of referrals, which is crucial, really, is working with different community groups and different representatives in order to ensure that we reach a wide audience and a diverse group of participants for the programme. And I think it's very encouraging to see the women grow through that programme, feel supported in a community. And I think the hub is cultivating that very well. So it's exciting times. It's a very empowering programme for the women and everyone involved. And ultimately, we want to sort of see those women make a success of their business ideas and flourish. And then in the long term, obviously, benefit the local economy. So ultimately, the programme is delivering what we said we would do. And it's great working with so many different partners, and the enthusiasm that they've kind of displayed is very encouraging. So we are reaching out to different groups, but of course, if there are additional groups that you know of, more than happy to share the e-flyer to spread the word even further about what we're doing. And as I said, the first cohort is halfway through, well, nearly halfway through now. So we're actively recruiting for the next cohort, which commences on the 15th of May in West Ealing. Venue to be decided, but it's along the Uxbridge Road, so that area. But ultimately, we're looking to recruit 25 women for that particular cohort. And the third cohort will also be in, I think, somewhere in Acton, again, to be decided in September. But again, another 25 women. So we're looking at large numbers, but ultimately we want to have impact and ensure that we've done everything we can to support those women. And but the feedback we're getting so far is very encouraging, and I think they're very inspired and driven to actually fulfill their business ideas to the end. So yeah, it's going well.
Great. Thank you very much for all three of your contributions this evening. I don't know if there's anyone had any questions at all for the team from West London University. I just had two very two questions. One was just for Eduardo, on that platform that you have, it just links into our previous conversation about high sort of well-paid jobs. Is there any, in terms of the, I can't remember now how many jobs you said they were advertising, was it 300 jobs advertised? Were they generally jobs that were sort of London living wage and above in terms of the things that are being advertised on there? And then the second question, I guess, is more for Stephen and Angela. Is there anything more that you feel the council could do in supporting the hub?
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, or from our perspective, especially for the programme, I think that the referrals process, just in terms of, there are a lot of groups that are hidden, I think, especially the community groups, grassroots representatives, those individuals are crucial in terms of, get sort of reaching out to those communities. I think that's definitely key to the programme, and that's what is really vital, I think, from our perspective. So and as I said, sort of promoting the programme at any opportunity. So for example, as I spoke today with Induous and the West London Alliance, they're aware of the programme now, so they're going to obviously publicise that and promote it to their caseload. So I think that in order to fulfill that wide range of different communities that we want to recruit onto the programme, Eastern European, African, Asian, across all groups, but those individuals who do not access those services, that's the crucial element here. Then from our perspective, yes, it's a multi-pronged approach. It's not going to be just in silos. I think it's really important to kind of spread the word and be aware of who those representatives are, and they need to be aware of the programme as well in order to make it really impactful.
Yeah, for my, I mean, it's good. Thank you for the question as well. I can look into that to provide you with further information, and I'll speak just a bit of the breakdown. I don't have that information at hand in terms of the 506 jobs from 2023, but yes, I can find that information for you.
That's great. Thank you very much. And thanks again for coming along this evening, providing your presentations. So that draws all the presentations to an end. The only item was just the recommendations for this evening. There's also the attachment at the end, which was the recommendations that we've made from the previous panels have all been accepted. And there's some comments on there about some of the status on some of those. I guess in terms of the recommendations for tonight, I just sort of jotted a few things down. I'll just sort of summarize that, and then anyone else had any other thoughts. I guess one was on sort of crime and the shoplift, and I just thought maybe potentially whether the head of the community safety team could maybe convene a meeting with the superintendent and the chair of each of the bids across Ealing, so they can have a conversation about shoplifting, crime, and how, for example, the design it out team, etc., in terms of improving that conversation. It sounded like from listening to Natasha earlier that, and conversations that from other businesses as well that you've had, that often a lot of businesses don't feel like the police are supporting them on this, in this direction, and what more we could do to try and improve things locally in that space was one that I potentially thought. The second one was just on the conversation about jobs and training and education, and whether, obviously, it's an evolving picture, but whether, and I'm not sure what panel it would go to in the future, but whether in a year's time, an update on that and see what progress and what lessons have been learnt, to see whether, we're making headways into people getting better jobs, whether the unemployment rate is coming down, and how the, that learning piece is playing into that. The two recommendations that I sort of thought. I don't know what other people's thoughts are. Given silence means that there's probably agreement on that, or everyone's been worn down. No, yeah, so I'll phrase those, and then I'll share them with Councillor Summers, and we can just and then circulate it, because we don't have another meeting to come back to. But thank you very much, everyone. I just wanted to just put on record as well, thank you to all the officers. Because of sickness, etc., we've had, I think, every officer from Democratic Services supported us throughout the year. So just say thank you for everyone stepping in and helping us arrange everything. So thank you. And
I thank you for chairing the meetings very politely and very efficiently. The only thing is they're a bit too long. I think it's a little bit like death by presentation. And if we didn't ask questions on those last one, it wasn't because what they were saying wasn't interesting. I think we were just a tiny bit worn out. Maybe for next year, whoever's here in Democratic Services, we have slightly less presentations and maybe more time for discussion, because I think it's just a little bit too much myself. Well, maybe it's my age, but
Yeah, I think that's valid. I think we've also potentially tried to cover quite a lot in 4 meetings. So, but yes, I think that's really valid. Thank you.
Yeah, I echo that and second Councillor Johnson. Well done, Councillor Conti. I think you've done a good job as chair.